Hello, everybody. This is Jeff from the Gift of Movements again. I thought maybe a good place to start with some more practical information about how we can go about maybe reducing some of your pain and increasing some function within whatever joints or whatever parts of your body that we need, is to talk about one of the myths that is a part of aging, and that the specific subject I'm thinking about is arthritis. Now, it's pretty common for people who are older to start developing some arthritis, and that can limit your function in those joints, in like your hands, your feet, your back. Doesn't matter where it's developed at. It can lead to some reduced function and at the same time pain. And part of the reduced function can be actually the problem of the pain, because when your brain senses danger, what it wants to do is stop those parts moving, so it may actually decrease the amount of force you can produce in those particular joints. There are some myths around that as far as arthritis and aging are concerned. A lot of people think that it's just a natural part of the aging process, and partially it is, but there are some things that we can do to prevent it, and if we've already got some of it going on, maybe mitigate it from increasing, and also at the same time improving function and reducing the amount of pain we may feel in those particular joints. There's a couple of different theories on how arthritis is developed within your joints. I won't talk about anything to do with the immune system or anything like that today, but just regular, normal, what they call osteoarthritis, which is an increase in the amount of bone within joints. One of those theories suggests that maybe there's too much movement within those joints that causes too much stress. And where that comes from is that the way our bones are made to grow when we're young, and also to maintain density as we get older, is by stimulating them through tension along the long axis of the bone, like if your arm tension in these long bones this way, like doing a bicep curl, something similar to that, or even a push-up. And then also impact, like if you're like walking, running, that kind of thing, then we have that impact that where we have a vibration actually going up into the bones. So this particular theory, in that regard, what happens is we have too much of a repetitive motion, and so we start to get bone that grows along that line of tension or with that repeated impact. In fact, they relate this a lot to when you get bone spurs. So a runner who may increase their mileage a lot in a short period of time, they may develop bone spurs in their heels because that fascia gets tightened down there, and it just creates a constant tension on that area where that is attached at, and the bone starts to grow out in that direction, which causes a lot of pain and a lot of problems with being able to walk and let alone run. Anyway, so that is one of the theories. So if you're moving like your hands and those type of things an awful lot, then from that theory, there's a possibility that you can start to develop that in that area. The second theory is probably something that's more common, a more common reason why you may have some development of arthritis in your joints, and that's actually from lack of movement. Our culture doesn't tend to support a lot of movement. We have jobs where we're sitting a lot of the time, we're in front of a computer screen, all those kinds of things, but we're not moving those a lot of our joints, even on a regular basis. And even if we are moving them, it's not enough to preserve the joints themselves. This theory is about the fact that each one of our joints has a substance, a cartilage that encases each one of the bones involved in those joints. It's articular cartilage. It provides a very slick surface for the bones that are involved in the joint to glide over the top, and so that reduces the wear and tear and the stress on the joint. It's in fact that our articular cartilage is the most frictionless substance that we've found so far on the earth. We've have made nothing like it. Man-made. We haven't been able to replicate that. So it's it's just another way that the body is designed in a really magnificent, amazing way. Anyways, there's some concerns about the health of that cartilage. There are a couple. It doesn't have very good blood supply, and so it doesn't tend to get a good amount of both water and the nutrients that it needs to keep that tissue healthy and hydrated. The way that we're designed that makes up for that is actually if you compress that tissue, if you flatten it down and then release it, what it does is it acts kind of like a sponge, and it brings that blood and the water into the tissue to keep it healthy. You have to compress it though in order for that to happen, and that's where the lack of movement comes in. And even some of that lack of movement can be not moving a joint in all the ways it's designed to move. For instance, like your shoulder joint, it's a ball and socket joint. If you don't rotate it very often, and the same thing with your hip joint, if you don't use rotation very often, then you may not be compressing all of that tissue. And over time, if it starts to get lack enough of the nutrients and even more importantly, the water, then what can happen is it can dry out. And then when we do move and we apply pressure into the joint from even things as simple as walking, even walking up or downstairs, or just walking across the yard, then what happens instead of gliding, you have bones that are rubbing against a surface that's not very slick, so it doesn't glide. And eventually what we can have happen is that articular cartilage is actually worn away, and then we start getting into a bone on bone situation. And sometimes the reaction to that is actually that form more bone growth, because your brain once again is defaulting to safety. It wants to prevent further damage from happening, so it actually wants to limit the movement of that joint. So that is the other theory for how the arthritis may start to form, is the actual lack of movement. Now, there are things that you can still do, even if we do have some arthritis that's developed and we've lost some of that articular cartilage. Number one, we want to continue to move as much as we can, so we preserve any articular cartilage that's within any of the joints that has been affected by the arthritis and the wearing away of the articular cartilage. So you want to do as much movement as you can. Obviously, if there's a great deal of pain involved, then we're going to limit that. But if we can preserve any of the articular cartilage in that joint, we want to do that. And there are also some studies that show that, well, in particular, a study that showed people with imaging that shows they got bone on bone in their knees, you can actually reduce the amount of pain and increase their function by actually doing some core training. that is core training that actually trains your core the way it's designed to be working in your body and how your body moves. So there are things that can be done to help change things. One of the little things that thought I would show you today is a way of maybe preserving or some of the function, maybe increasing the function and reducing some of the pain in your hands. It's pretty common as you get older to have the hands start to hurt in the joints. Maybe we do have some arthritis that's going on. And there's some like 4 simple movements I'm going to show you. They take about 5 minutes. Doing those daily can help, even if we've got a significant amount of arthritis in those joints, in like your knuckles and your wrist and your thumb. They can help increase the function and reduce the pain that we've got going on in those joints. I'm going to set up the camera a little bit lower here so you can see what's going on with my hand. Okay, so the first movement, and you want to do this on a, let me move that back a little bit more. You want to do this on a surface that is kind of slick, that you can move on. I'm doing it on the tabletop here today. If you place your hand on top of that surface like it's a spider, and then you push down on it, allowing your fingers to spread out. That's the first exercise, and you would do that 10 times. And you probably want to do it on both hands. Okay, and then the second exercise is going to, well, just to go over that a little bit, we don't normally move our hands in that direction. They usually end up curled a little bit. So that's going to stretch out those tissues, the fascia, and maybe to a limited extent the muscles that control this movement in your hand, the gripping action. So it works that way on another level as well, getting some movement in a direction you don't normally move your hands. So the second one is going to be focused more on movement within these knuckle joints. So we're going to go into this position so it looks kind of like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to roll over the top, taking each one of those joints in your knuckles through a range of motion and applying a little bit of pressure to it. And that's going to provide some of that compression that will help preserve the articular cartilage. If there's not a whole lot left there, it will at least preserve the movement and maybe reduce the pain and increase your function. Okay, so the third exercise is actually going to be focused on your thumb. We're actually going to do 2 of those. So this is what this looks like. You're going to start with your thumb out here, and then we're going to roll over the top of it in this position, and then we'll roll back. And let me get a little bit different angle here. So you can see what happens. And you do apply a little bit of pressure to it, but we're mainly focusing on like that movement we did with your fingers to move through those knuckles that make up your thumb. And then the last movement is actually to be in this position that we got to when we did this one with the thumb. And now what we're going to do is roll back and forth over the top of it. There's more of a round joint. It's not a ball and socket, it's a saddle joint. But there is some roundness and articulation in that direction with it. It's what allows you to move your thumbs like this. And by doing this, then we're going to get more of that articular cartilage. So those are 4 different exercises you can do that may help with if you've got stuff going on in your hands, which a lot of people do. That may in fact reduce the amount of pain that you have going on in your hands. It may help increase the function within them. I've had numerous clients who have done these exercises, and they've all reported to me that if their hands feel better and they feel like they can do more with them. There may have only been 1 or 2 people who've had a lot of dysfunction in their hands, not a whole lot of movement, that haven't reported to me very much improvement in their function or their pain. Anyways, but give those a try and see what happens. Let me know in the comments. Be interested to hear what you have to say. Obviously, you need to do them on a regular basis. Once a day would be ideal. Because if you don't do them, then we're not going to get the benefits out of it. We do have to do those movements. That's one of the reasons when we were in a culture that you moved more, then we didn't have these particular problems going on. Anyways, please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And then, as always, but please like and subscribe if you do like and want to have more of this information coming into you. Anyways, I look forward to hearing from you, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks. Bye.